There's a tiny house shape that almost nobody talks about, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. It is called the O shape. Picture a small home that wraps in a complete loop around its own private courtyard. So every single room gets its own wall of glass looking into that courtyard instead of at your neighbor's fence. The trick is simple. That courtyard in the middle is outdoor space, which means it does not count toward your enclosed square footage or your permit fees, but your brain still counts it as living space. Designers call this the borrowed room effect, and it is the reason a 400 square foot O-shaped tiny home can feel bigger than a 1,200 square foot apartment. Stick around, because near the end of this video, I'm going to show you the one design mistake that turns an O-shaped home from a light-filled sanctuary into a hot, dark box. And it is a mistake almost every first-time builder makes. Before we get into it, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because every week on this channel we break down a different tiny home design and tell you exactly what it costs to build in 2026. No sponsorships, no affiliate links, just real numbers from real builders. Now let's get into why this shape is quietly becoming one of the smartest tiny house layouts in the country. Most tiny houses are built as a single rectangle. You walk in the front door, and everything from the kitchen to the bedroom sits in a straight line or an open box. An O-shaped tiny house throws that rulebook out. The structure forms a closed loop for short wings connected at the corners, wrapping completely around a private courtyard in the center. Unlike a U-shaped or L-shaped home, which leaves one side open to the yard or the street, the O-shape closes the loop on all four sides. That courtyard becomes a fully private outdoor room that only you can see into. Architects who work with courtyard layouts point out that this style intentionally blurs the line between the walls of the house and the walls of the courtyard, because interior rooms open directly onto that outdoor space through glass doors or full window walls. And because the courtyard is classified as exterior space, it does not get counted in your home's official conditioned square footage, even though it functions as an extra room every single day. This is not a brand new idea, and it is not just a tiny house trend. In Alphington, Australia, the firm FIGR Architecture and Design built a home nicknamed the Haus, and its floor plan is literally shaped like a donut, wrapping fully around a central landscape courtyard. That layout was chosen specifically to maximize cross-ventilation and north-facing glazing, letting light and airflow reach every room without sacrificing privacy from the street. It proves the O-shape is not a gimmick. It is a proven architectural strategy for squeezing more light, air, and perceived space out of a limited footprint, just now being scaled down into something you can actually afford to build. Here is where psychology gets interesting. In a typical tiny house, every window faces outward toward a fence, a driveway, or a neighbor's siding. Your eye hits a wall a few feet away and your brain registers small. In an O-shaped home, every single room can have a window or a glass door facing inward, into your own courtyard instead of outward into someone else's yard. That inward-facing view changes everything. You're not looking at a wall 3 feet away. You're looking through your living room, across an open courtyard, into your bedroom on the opposite wing. Designers who study small footprint homes call this borrowed depth. Your eye travels through multiple rooms and an outdoor space in a single sight line, and your brain calculates the visible depth of the whole loop, not just the 60 square feet of the room you're standing in. There's also a privacy dividend that most people do not expect. Because every window faces inward toward your own courtyard rather than outward toward the street or a neighbor, you can install floor-to-ceiling glass without giving up any privacy at all. A 200 square foot bedroom with a 30-foot uninterrupted sight line across a courtyard and into another wing of the house genuinely reads as a much larger space than the same 200 square feet boxed in on 4 solid sides. That is the 3 times larger claim in a nutshell. It is not a magic trick, it is basic sightline geometry, the same principle luxury resort villas have used for decades, just shrunk down to tiny house scale. For a look at how far architects will go to make this layout work, look at the Courtyard house in London, designed by the firm de Rosy Sa. To be upfront with you, this is not a budget tiny house. It is a roughly 1,270 to 1,500 square foot infill project built on a former garage site, and it carried a construction cost in the neighborhood of 400,000 to 500,000 British pounds. I am not showing you this as a cost comparison. I am showing it to you as a spatial case study because the design strategy is identical to what we're talking about today. Large skylights and glass walls face inward toward a private central courtyard, which let the architects fit 2 full bedrooms and a bathroom into a tight urban lot, while keeping every room bright and private. The same trick that makes a 500,000-pound London infill feel open and generous is the exact same trick that makes a $45,000 tiny home feel 3 times its size. The shape does the work, not the price tag. Now let's talk about the cost part, because this is where a lot of videos get sloppy, and I'm not going to do that to you. Across 2026 industry cost guides, tiny homes nationally run somewhere between $150 and $450 per square foot, depending on finish level, foundation type, and region, with most fully built professional projects landing between $45,000 and $130,000 all in. That is the baseline for a standard rectangular tiny house. Here is why an O-shaped courtyard design can dramatically stretch your budget compared to a rectangular home with the same overall footprint. The courtyard itself, the part that creates that 3 times larger feeling, is not enclosed square footage. You're not paying for framing, insulation, drywall, HVAC, or a finished indoor floor on that space. On a typical build, enclosed conditioned space runs the full $150 to $450 per square foot range because it needs plumbing, wiring, insulation, and climate control. Open courtyard space usually costs somewhere in the range of $15 to $40 per square foot for basic hardscaping and landscaping. That gap is the entire secret. To be precise about what half the price actually means here, you're getting roughly half the cost per square foot of usable indoor and outdoor living area combined, not half the cost of the physical structure itself, because the O-shape's 4 corners and extra roof lines actually push the framing cost per enclosed square foot slightly higher than a simple rectangular box. The savings come from how much total living area you get for your money, not from the structure being cheaper to frame. 4 real-world reference points. National builders like Tumbleweed Tiny House Company and Escape Traveler currently price their fully finished, professionally built flagship models starting anywhere from about $80,000 to over $95,000. But when architects design around central courtyard layouts, they dramatically cut down on the amount of interior hallway and circulation space a normal layout needs. Less enclosed circulation space means less finished square footage to heat and cool, which lowers your total build cost without losing a single bit of light or openness. There's a second cost advantage that most people never think about. In a standard rectangular tiny house, you might spend 20 to 40 square feet just on hallways, space you're paying full conditioned square footage prices for while getting 0 usable room in return. In an O shape, the courtyard replaces that hallway. You walk across your own private garden or covered deck to reach the next wing. That is square footage you never had to insulate, wire, or heat. Because an O-shape splits your home into 4 distinct wings instead of 1 open box, storage planning works differently than it does on a typical tiny house. You cannot rely on one long run of cabinets down a single wall. Instead, each wing tends to function like its own small module. 1 for sleeping, 1 for cooking, 1 for bathing, 1 for living or working, connected by the courtyard rather than a hallway. That means built-in storage has to be planned per wing, using the corner junctions where 2 wings meet as prime real estate for closets, pantries, or utility stacks, since those corners are structurally reinforced anyway, and often the least useful space for anything else. The upside is that this modular approach makes it easier to keep each room visually uncluttered, because storage gets tucked into the connecting corners instead of eating into the open sight lines that make the whole design feel larger in the first place. Beyond the visual trick, the O-shape has a genuine performance advantage that goes back thousands of years to traditional courtyard architecture in hot, dry climates. When a courtyard is enclosed on all 4 sides, the surrounding walls shade each other for large parts of the day, which keeps direct sun exposure on the courtyard floor lower than an open yard would get. That shaded courtyard air is naturally cooler, and as it warms slightly and rises, it pulls fresh air in through lower openings in a process architects call the stack effect. Open glass doors on opposite wings, and that cooler courtyard air gets pulled straight through the home through natural cross-ventilation, without running the air conditioner. The flip side matters too, and I want to be honest with you about it. In cold or wet climates, an enclosed courtyard can trap moisture and cold air if it is not designed with proper drainage and orientation. The homes that perform best year-round are typically oriented so the main courtyard axis maximizes winter sun exposure while the surrounding walls still block summer sun at its highest, harshest angle. Get that orientation wrong, and instead of a bright, temperate courtyard, you end up with a shaded, damp pit that never sees direct light. That is a real trade-off, and it is exactly why site orientation matters more on an O shape than on almost any other tiny house layout. One thing almost nobody mentions when they show you a beautiful courtyard tiny home is that this layout tends to use more of your total lot than a standard rectangle with the same enclosed square footage, since the courtyard sits inside the building's footprint rather than beside it. Local setback rules, lot coverage limits, and minimum yard requirements all apply to that footprint, courtyard included, even though the courtyard itself is not conditioned living space. Before you fall in love with a floor plan, it is worth checking with your local building department on how they classify an enclosed interior courtyard for lot coverage and setback purposes, because the rules vary significantly by city and county, and this is the kind of detail that can quietly reshape your entire design before you ever pour a foundation. I promised you honest numbers on this channel, so here is the trade-off side of the ledger. O-shaped homes are structurally more complex than a simple rectangle. 4 connected wings with 4 corners means 4 times the roof transitions, 4 times the potential leak points, and a more complicated framing job than a single box. That complexity means labor costs per square foot of actual enclosed construction tend to run toward the higher end of the national range. The other trade-off is usable footprint. Because the courtyard eats up the center of your lot, an O-shape needs more total land area than a rectangular home with the same enclosed square footage. If you're working with a narrow urban lot or a small trailer for a home on wheels, a full O-shape usually will not fit. This is why you see O-shaped courtyard designs much more often on permanent foundation builds with modest land, rather than on tiny homes on wheels. If mobility is your top priority, this specific shape is probably not your best option, and I would rather tell you that now than have you find out after signing a contract. Now here is the mistake I promised you at the top of this video, and it is the single biggest reason O-shaped tiny house projects go wrong. Builders and first-time owners obsess over the floor plan, the finishes, and the furniture, and they treat courtyard orientation as an afterthought, something to figure out once the foundation is already poured. That is backwards. On every other tiny house shape, you can rotate the whole building on the lot or adjust later with curtains or shade sails. On an O-shape, the orientation of the courtyard relative to the sun's path is baked into the concrete before a single wall goes up. Get it wrong, and you have built a beautiful, expensive shadow box that traps cold, damp air for half the year and blocks the exact light that was supposed to make the whole design work. Get it right, and that same courtyard becomes the single hardest working room in the entire house, doing the job of a hallway, a skylight, a garden, and an air conditioner all at once for a fraction of what it would cost to build that much enclosed space. That is the entire secret behind why this shape can feel 3 times larger for a fraction of the cost, and it all comes down to a decision that has to be made before construction even starts. If this kind of honest, no sponsorship breakdown is useful to you, subscribe to Affordable Tiny Homes so you do not miss the next one, and drop a comment telling me which shape you want me to break down next, because I read every single one. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.